Today at 3 on News Channel 5.
Today on Katie, sexually cyberbullied and tormented until she took her own life.
15 years old, your only child. I was so full of outrage.
What you can do to protect your child.
That's when you say enough is enough. It's time to start parenting.
Then the daughter of former Senator John Edwards speaks out.
Were you furious at your dad?
Plus, workouts for two.
Hello.
How to break a sweat with your partner. From Studio One in New York, it's Katie.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're talking about a tragedy that is happening far too frequently in this country, something that happens when adolescence, alcohol, and technology collide. This is a story every teenager and every parent needs to pay attention to because a 15-year-old girl is no longer here to tell it. This story affected me deeply, and that's why it's today's big conversation. On September 2nd, 2012, 15-year-old Audrey Pott crafted the classic teenage ploy. She told her mom she was spending the night at a friend's house. Her friend told her mom the same thing. Instead, the two girls threw a parent-free party. In their community, it was known as a kickback. 11 kids showed up. Many of them were binge drinking, including Audrey. According to the authorities, 3 boys, all her classmates, walked into a room where Audrey was passed out. When she woke up the next morning, her clothes were off. Words and pictures had been drawn on her body with a permanent marker. On one leg was the name of a boy, followed by the words, "was here." Her naked and defiled body was captured by the perpetrator's cell phones. Almost immediately, the graphic photos began to make their rounds at her school. Facebook messages about that night began flying back and forth. "I swear to God, if you still have those pictures, I'll kill you," she wrote to one of the boys, who assured her, "You are fine. I'll make sure nothing goes around." The next day, she wrote, "My life is ruined by a night I don't even remember." 8 days after the party, Audrey texted her mom, Sheila, to come pick her up early from school. But she refused to tell her why and kept the whole ordeal a secret. Later that same day, Audrey Pott hanged herself in her bathroom. She died 2 days later. Among Audrey's last words written to one of the boys, "You have no idea what it's like to be a girl." Audrey's story was recently featured in Rolling Stone magazine. Sheila Pott is Audrey's mother. Sheila, thank you so much for being here today. I hate to ask you to go back to that terrible day, about just a little over a year ago. But tell me what happened when you got that text from Audrey asking you to pick her up from school early that day.
I texted her back asking her what was going on, what was wrong, and the reason why she wanted me to pick her up. And she texted me back, "Never mind." And then she called me just a while later, and I said, "What's going on?" And she was silent for quite a while, and she wouldn't say anything. And I did get to school early. She got into the car, and I started to press her again about why she wanted me to pick her up, and she wouldn't tell me really anything.
You got home?
I got home. I told her, "Why don't you go in the house and we'll talk in a few minutes?" Because I could tell she was noticeably upset. And I went to check on her a few minutes later, and when I knocked on the bathroom door, she didn't answer. And I felt like something was wrong, so I found something to pop the door open. And I found her there and immediately ran to the kitchen to cut her down and start CPR and grab my phone to dial 911. And the paramedics came right away. They did CPR and they took her immediately to the hospital where they got her heart beating, and she was breathing for a short while, and then they put her on a ventilator.
She lived for 2 days or was kept alive for 2 days?
Neurologist said that there wasn't much brain activity at all and that her organs were beginning to shut down. So at that time, we had to make the decision no parent ever wants to make. Do you keep her alive and let her go on her own, or do you donate her organs? And we felt that since she was kind and giving, that she would want someone else to live on if she couldn't. And so we made that decision.
15 years old, your only child.
Yes.
Did you have any idea at all at this time what had happened to Audrey?
I had no clue. An investigation was started, but we weren't notified until the following Sunday evening, Monday, that there was a sexual assault and there was bullying that happened after that.
You read some of the things that Audrey wrote leading up to the day she took her own life. And hearing some of the things that we mentioned, some of the things on Facebook or that she had written to her friends, so-called friends, that must have been heartbreaking for you.
We found the Facebook messages approximately 2 weeks after she passed, and fortunately, these streams of messages, there was approximately 8 of them with people that were present at the party, let us know exactly what happened and how she felt, where we probably would have never known.
Obviously, the incident itself was humiliating enough, but then the notion of these photographs being circulated, it sounded as if that was just too much to bear for her.
She was extremely private, so I can't even imagine what it would feel like to be betrayed by your friends, the people that you trust, and then to have to walk the halls of your world, which is your high school, and feel like people are looking at you and saying things that are derogatory and passing judgment. I can't even imagine how she felt and how she kept it inside for so many days.
Nina Burley is the writer of the Rolling Stone article called Sexting, Shame, and Suicide. And Nina, I was so affected and disturbed by this piece. I think it's important to convey how awful these photographs were.
These juveniles were charged with sex assaults, sexual assaults, and that didn't just involve ink pens. It involved hands, and it involved this girl's body, and it involved invading boundaries in a way that that constitutes a charge of sexual assault.
3 of the boys were arrested. What happened to them?
At this point, they have been charged, and they are back on campus awaiting the results of the criminal case.
We reached out to the lawyers for the 3 boys, but we heard back from only one of them who had no comment. And earlier in the year, lawyers for all 3 issued a joint statement asking that the public reserve judgment and that the boys be regarded as innocent while the case is pending. What do you think should happen to these boys?
I asked, first of all, for an apology to Audrey. I asked for a public apology to the school and the community. And I've asked for the case to be made public. However, we don't know if that will be granted. I've also asked for them to participate in a sexual assault and anti-bullying prevention campaign so that they can potentially do some good and perhaps be instrumental in saving someone else from this same type of crime.
Nina, having done this piece, how do we sensitize a population that takes photographs of exploited young women and disseminate them around for everyone to see?
Start the conversation early, in school, at home, about respecting girls and women.
I think boys and girls need to have something to balance these hypersexualized images that are all around us all the time, and to understand that you cannot take advantage of a girl who's had too much to drink.
A smartphone can be a loaded weapon in the wrong hands.
Well, I think it's incredibly courageous of you to come and share your story so it can start conversations about this all over the country. And we are so deeply sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Up next, a young woman who was sexually cyberbullied and how she's helping girls fight back. That's right after this. So
Up next, a young girl's torment.
So it wasn't just whispering in the hallways about you. People started to attack you online. What kinds of things would they say?
And later,
we're looking at 20% of kindergartners who are now engaging in bullying. And that's when you say enough is enough.
It's all coming up.
And today's big conversation is about the epidemic of sexual cyberbullying. That was a scene from the movie Disconnect about what happened after a boy sent a photo of himself naked to someone he thought was a flirtatious girl, but it wasn't a girl. It was two male classmates playing a cruel joke on him. Emily Linden says she too was sexually bullied in school and it deeply affected her childhood. She has since started a campaign called the Unslut Project. Please welcome Emily. Nice to see you. Thank you so much, Emily. So, it's so great that you're talking to girls and educating girls and boys about this problem because of your own personal experience. So what happened to you, Emily, in school?
Well, when I was 11 years old, I had developed a lot more quickly than most other girls my age. So I was already a target for sexual attention from boys. I ended up experimenting sexually with my boyfriend at the time. He and his friend convinced me to let him stick his hands down my pants. And I felt slightly coerced at the time. I wrote about it in my diary that way, but I wanted to. I wanted him to like me, and I was also interested in exploring my sexuality. And it turned out that he then spread rumors that I had had sex with him. His friends spread rumors that spread to my friends, who stopped being my friends. It spread school-wide, so I was in 6th grade, and I had 7th graders, 8th graders, even high school students knowing that I was that 6th grade slut. And parents in our community found out. So my parents never really knew what was going on. They never knew the details, but they knew that something was really upsetting me. And my mom tried many times to start conversations with me, but I just felt so isolated. I felt so ashamed of this reputation that I convinced myself I deserved. And it ended up leading to a few different instances where boys touched my body because they assumed that's what I wanted, because I had the reputation of being a slut. And it wasn't what I wanted. I kept a diary the whole time, and that's something that ended up being a really special tool for me, because when I heard about stories like Audrey Pott and like other girls who've gone through something similar, I knew I had my diaries as a primary source of what it's like to be at that age going through that type of bullying.
This happened in 6th grade, but it grew and escalated as you got older, didn't it?
Yes. It started when I was 11 years old, and throughout 7th grade and 8th grade, I had that reputation. Around high school, I started to move away from it. I started to focus on my academics and overcome it. But for a couple years there, I considered committing suicide a couple of times. I ended up cutting my wrists, and it was more of a cry for help rather than an actual attempt to kill myself. But obviously, it never worked. I just felt such a connection to the girls who did go through with it. I felt like I really needed to share my story.
It wasn't just whispering in the hallways about you. People started to attack you online.
Right.
What kinds of things would they say?
Well, one of my best friends turned into one of my worst enemies and my worst tormentors. She made a screen name. So this was before Twitter and Facebook, but we had AIM Instant Messenger, AOL Instant Messenger, and she sent me a message from the screen name Die Emily Linden, and it said, "Why haven't you killed yourself yet, you stupid slut?" I remember it so vividly because until that point, my home had been kind of a refuge. I had been in school. It felt like I was always under attack. The bus ride home was a nightmare, but I would think to myself, okay, Emily, just get to your house, and then you can burst into tears. And having an instant message pop up on my parents' computer screen in their den, it felt like I was being attacked within my own home.
How did you feel when you read about Audrey's story?
I felt devastated. I felt like that could have been me. It really resonated with me, so that I felt like I needed to do something. I needed to somehow turn what was such an awful experience for me into a way to prevent anything like this from happening again, or at least trying my best to do that.
You started an organization called the Unslut Project to combat what's known as slut shaming.
Right.
What do you mean by that exactly?
So slut shaming refers to making a woman feel less than, denigrating a woman for her perceived or real sexual behavior.
Do you ever wonder what your situation would have been like if, in fact, cell phones and being able to spread photos and post photos, if you had been further victimized in that way?
I think it would have changed things a lot. Nowadays, everyone has a smartphone. A lot of teenagers have smartphones. Everyone obviously doesn't, but lots of teenagers do. And they document their parties just as they always have, but often including these incriminating photos. I think my situation would have been a lot different.
Why do you think it's happening so often these days?
I think it's always happened. I think that the online aspect of it makes it a lot more public. It adds a new level of publicity to it.
What is your goal? What do you hope to accomplish with your organization and your efforts?
My first goal is to kind of start conversations among adults and demonstrate what an issue this is and how pervasive it is. Excuse me, my second goal, and probably the most important and most immediate goal, is to reach girls who are going through something like this now and to let them know so many of us have gone through some variation of this, and we've survived and we've made our lives wonderful. I mean, we've been fulfilled and we've been successful. You don't have to take your own life. It's not what the best option is. And so reaching those girls is the most important, most immediate goal for me.
And you got through your ordeal. You went on, you graduated from Harvard,
yeah.
And now you're helping other girls who are in similar situations. So.
I really hope to. We just want to reach as many people as possible.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie.
And when we come back, how can you spot the warning signs that your child is being cyberbullied? We'll talk about that right after this. Thank you.
Coming up.
Nobody knows your child better than you. Pick up the phone and get help. The two worst words I hear from parents are, if only.
And later, the daughter of former Senator John Edwards opens up about his painful betrayal.
Were you furious at your dad?
It's all coming up.
And we're back. Today we're talking about sexual cyberbullying. Dr. Michelle Borba is an educational psychologist who studies the effects of sexual cyberbullying on teens. Thank you so much, Dr. Borba, for coming. You actually went to Audrey's high school.
I am a graduate of Saratoga High. When I read that Rolling Stone magazine, I absolutely was in a state of outrage. I think what's happening is that empathy has absolutely been vaporized. We're addressing so much of their minds, we have forgotten their hearts, and that becomes a very sad commentary.
That's actually very well said. Meanwhile, technology has so changed the game when it comes to bullying. I mean, I think it was intolerable always.
Yes.
My sister was bullied in school, and I remember it was so upsetting for us and so upsetting for my mom and dad. And yet, you know, it was something that we dealt with just as a family, or maybe as a school community slightly. But this is so different, isn't it?
It's different because bullying was at least direct, and it's never right. It's absolutely 100% wrong, but it's direct, so that the victim only has to face that one child who's bullying them or other children who are watching. Once you add the cyber dynamics, the child is now cyberbullied and has no idea how many other people in the world have heard that comment. It's humiliation. It's up the ante, and it becomes this volcano, almost an avalanche of cruelty that goes everywhere. And it's also starting at younger levels. We're looking at 20% of kindergartners who are now engaging in bullying. And that's when you say enough is enough. It's time to start parenting, and it's time to start getting back to raising a child who has that sense of respect. That doesn't happen naturally. It's an intentional thing that we need to apply as parents.
It seems like so many of these kids, it's so strange to me, because it seems like so many of these kids are completely devoid of any moral conscience.
Conscience comes from modeling. So a lot of us have to say to ourselves, are we modeling that conscience to our children? Are we intentional with it? Are we really deliberately trying to help our kids? But also, I think it's empathy. And that's the other thing that's so deadly about cyberbullying, is that you're allowed to say something extraordinarily vicious to a child, but you don't have to have the face-to-face connection.
And that's empowering for people, isn't it?
It's extremely empowering.
Or you can do it anonymously in the case of some social media.
The child never feels who clicks the darn thing and goes out that he'll never be tracked because it's anonymous. And the first thing we better tell our kids is, you better darn well be sure, sweetheart, that when you click that thing, it will come back because you are able to be tracked.
I know that you've worked in California to change the law. So how is the law in California different than the rest of the country?
First of all, 49 states have now passed anti-bullying policies. But even so, we still have to get to a different mindset in this whole thing called bullying. The first thing we have to address is, because you have a law, it doesn't mean you're going to change behaviors of kids.
I was going to say, you can't legislate behavior.
And that's the problem that we're dealing with. We think that, okay, but we had an assembly at our school, or we've got posters up on the wall that said stop bullying. The goal of an anti-bullying policy is, number one, you will change the habits and behaviors of kids. Bullying is learned, Katie. It can be unlearned.
We're talking about a specific kind of bullying today,
Yes.
sexual cyberbullying.
Yes.
Girls who are being taken advantage of, exploited, and publicly humiliated. Why is that happening more and
Because
more
the
often?
culture has become sexualized so soon, and it's filtering down to our kids. We're not talking to our boys at an earlier age, telling them this is appropriate and this is not. When a girl says no, a girl means no. It's really the talk. We wait until, okay, they're 16, now let's go do it.
And if a girl's inebriated, there is no such thing as consent.
And when there are friends who are at a party who are not inebriated and realize that there's a girl who is, it's up to you to be something called an upstander and help that girl. What we're not doing is teaching our kids how to be not just a silent bystander, but help out.
And finally, how can you tell if your child is being cyberbullied? Because obviously, Sheila had no idea what was happening to Audrey. And you know, you can understand why Audrey wouldn't want to share that with her mom. She was so horribly embarrassed. And conversely, how can you tell if your child might be engaged in this kind of bullying behavior?
The first thing to Sheila is to know that most kids don't. By third grade, we've already discovered there's a nosedive in children coming and telling us. And when I ask them, why aren't you saying, they say 4 things. Number 1, it's fear of humiliation, embarrassment. We need to say, hey, no matter what happens, I'm there for you, and I love you, and I'm going to back you up. They also are fearful of retaliation. You're going to tell mom, you're going to call the principal, you're only going to make it worse.
And you know what?
It very often could. So you better make sure that you've got a safety plan in place for this child. We also know that the other thing the kids tell us, but they're giving us bad advice. You're telling us to do this and it doesn't work, mom. So we as parents need to get educated about what does work for bullying and what doesn't. The signs, nobody knows your child better than you. The best sign is to ask yourself, is there something different? Sleep patterns change. You begin to see that he's not eating right. You'll begin to see that. They're not going to come up to you going, I'm stressed out, mom, or I've got a problem. And the most important thing, Katie, is even if you have that doubt, you've got that gut instinct in your body. Nobody knows your kid better. Pick up the phone and get help. The 2 worst words I hear from parents are, if only. If you think it, get the help you need. Better safe than sorry.
We've got to band together as a community. We have to work with schools. We have to really try to impart that sense of morality, that sense of empathy, and turn these kids around.
And that's doable. It's up to us as a group of committed adults to say, enough is enough. We can do this. Let's start, and not one more child.
And I think that everyone should read this article. Really.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Borda. Thank you to all of you for coming in today, because I thought this was such an important story and such an important conversation to have. And Sheila, again, thank you for your courage in coming forward and talking about your darling daughter, Audrey. Thank you. And you can read more about Audrey's story in Rolling Stone magazine. We'll be right back.
Coming up, Kate Edwards on her father John Edwards' affair.
Honestly, I was so mad. So if I were you, I would have been just enraged.
And later, double your fitness fun with a couple's workout.
Whoa!
It's all coming up.